So yeah, Lexi had pulled some oracle cards for me, and they gave the idea of like surrender and creativity. And emotionally and mentally, I feel very much in a place where these ideas really relate to how I'm feeling and how I am adjusting and processing having come back from a retreat. And I feel very fortunate that while going to a Unicult retreat is a holy, and you can spell that however you want if you want to get punny about it, a wholly unique experience. But I also, in my life, have had a lot of experience going to different conventions and different gatherings and seeing a lot of people that I only see a couple times a year or, maybe once a year, even if that. And you have, when you do something like that, whether it's a retreat or a convention or something like that, there's always that little bit of emotional drop sometimes that you get when you go into a space that is almost its own little world with different norms and a different vibe and with people that you care about on different levels, but you don't see that often. And so it's this huge shift. And we've been talking about going through portals in essence, and I always have seen the airport as a portal between the place where I'm going and the place where I'm going to be, which sounds pretty simplistic. But for me, it really exemplifies this idea that I'm, leaving my day-to-day space with my day-to-day worries and my day-to-day obligations and commitments. And in this case, I'm going to a place like Uniacres, which is just, a magical space surrounded by nature. It is full of this energy of not just UNICULT energy, but this amazing energy of radical parenting and this energy of like the next generation of loving, enlightened beings running around and being cared for. And it's beautiful and it's amazing. And it's something I think a lot of us, I know that I didn't get growing up. And so having all those energies together creates this amazing, unseen bubble around the whole space. And so coming back from that, it used to be in like, I would have a lot of event drop. And this was maybe, 8, 10 years ago or so when I was in various fandoms. And you kind of, as you go through moving in and out of these spaces, you get a little bit better at it each time. You get a little bit more adept and you make more skills at returning to your regular life. And it can be really illuminating when you come back into your day-to-day. And I don't want to put a value judgment on one being better than the other, because I think both spaces work in conjunction with each other, and I think the energy feeds off of each other. It takes a little bit to not feel like they're diametrically opposed, like, wow, I went to this heavenly place and now I'm back in this place that doesn't feel like that. And for a while it feels like those two things are very contrasting and they're very at odds with each other. But the thing that's really been exemplified for me in the last couple of weeks is I've been back in my apartment, back here in San Antonio, and adjusting to, the reality that I'm, for the foreseeable future, going to be in San Antonio for a while. It has really forced me, in a healthy way, to look at what's around me and examine how my space right now can be more like the space I was in. How can I take the energy that I felt while I was in Georgia, and how can I bring it back to Texas? And I think that's something that's really been building up, through Colorado and through the Texas retreat, is learning that the energy isn't necessarily tied to a space. It's not even necessarily tied to one group of people. Being around other unicultists does help create, and bring up that energy. It helps bring it up out of the ground, help bring it out of the air, and helps you kind of hold on to it a bit better. But it does not mean that it can't be taken with you. It certainly can. It can always go with you. And I have found that I've been finding other ways to create that kind of serene, loving, caring environment where I'm at. And I see that in other Unicult members too. I think about that. I know Flip Top has been creating a lovely plant garden on her porch that looks so beautiful and serene, and it's wonderful. And it gets me thinking about, oh, where can I, put plants in my home, because that's a vibe that I would like to have. Or Space Freckle has been baking and cooking a lot and sharing that with people in the Discord. And it's been getting me thinking, oh, yeah, wait, I remember how to do that. How can I cook and go back to making meals for myself? And one thing we were talking about a lot in Georgia was this idea of how do we create, like, this, the energy and the feeling and the caring of Uniacres where we're at, whether that's just by ourselves, or in the future, not limiting Unicult to just one specific space, because Unicult and the ideals and the fundamentals, they are pertinent to all sorts of places in the world. Uniacres can be a beautiful place in Georgia, but Unicult can also be needed as an urban commune in a city. It can be Unicult starting an urban garden, in a city where a number of us live. It can be so many different things. Unicult has always been about change. Unicult has never been static. And it was that idea that I took back to my home, and it turned out to be just like very simple things, honestly. And the creativity, like like Lexi brought up to my attention, has been seeing in just, I've been cooking and been trying to get not super creative, but it's just muscles that I haven't flexed in a while. And I've been starting to sit down and pull into my own creativity, which means maybe even finding new ways to, get involved in some of my hobbies, or sitting down and working on some story outlines and working on my writing, which I haven't done in a while. And just doing that, you can feel the energy that you're putting out, not just going into the thing that you're working on. Like I can take my pencil and my notepad, and I can write down an outline, or I can write down some, plot ideas or character ideas, and it just doesn't stay on the paper. It kind of goes out from there, and it, goes around the entire space that you're in. And I just allow it to happen. And I think that's where surrender comes in. And we've talked a lot about surrender on this channel in a number of different ways. But a lot of times we talk about it in this way of surrendering to the divine plan. And that's great. And that's wonderful. And listening to higher self and letting the higher self lead the way. And it can be very hard when we're just coming out of a portal and we're, maybe we're excited about it, or maybe we're a little like discombobulated from it. I know all of us have been having like different reactions to coming out of portals, and all of them are amazing. And for me, what surrender has been looking at and looking like in the last couple of weeks has been surrendering first to harsh emotions that I may feel, so unpleasant emotions that I may feel, and letting them pour out. I felt a lot in the last couple of weeks like just a big water balloon. Like my head is just a big water balloon, and it has been slowly just emptying out. And sometimes I'm able to do it by myself, and that's great. And sometimes I need support, and I've had some beautiful support in the last couple of weeks. And there's no better support in the world than other Unicult members. And so I feel blessed for all of you. And then surrender can look like getting up in the morning and taking a moment to listen to the higher self and say, well, what do I need? What do I need? And I found for me that the first thing I think of is typically what my higher self is asking me to do for that day. My worser traits, the things that I work on, my habits or addictions, for lack of a better word, they typically don't tend to be the first thing I think of. They tend to be the thing that kind of that pushes out of the way the thing that I really need. And so I try to listen to what I think my higher self is asking me for. And sometimes, a lot of times this week, that's just been extra sleep. So it may be after work, let's not go, have a soda and sit on the couch. My body connecting to something higher will say, no, you need to rest. You need to rest. You were at a computer screen all day. You need to not look at screens for a while. Just go upstairs and get some rest. And that has been incredibly helpful to do. And it's been really wonderful to listen to and to follow that. And when I do that, I feel this sense of knowing that I'm following the correct path and taking care of myself in a way that is connected to my high self, that's connected to source, that is divinely prescribed for me. And when I came home from the retreat, at first I was not looking forward to it just because everything had been a bit of a kerfuffle. And so I was feeling a little resentful of my space. I was feeling a little resentful of this space that I came into, this apartment originally just to save money on rent. And so it had not felt like home. And it hadn't felt like home for a year, and I had been focused on like getting out of here. And when you're focused on getting out of a space, then you're really not present in that space, because I am locked into the future. I am thinking about the future. I am envisioning the future, and I am not being present in the walls that are around me and the space that's around me. And when I came home, and I was very worried that I was just going to feel resentful, that I was going to feel trapped. But when I got home, instead of having those feelings and having that emotional drop, instead I got this feeling of, what can I do creatively to make this feel like home? And so I started to not think about the next week or 6 months or 12 months from now. And I started to listen into what my body and what my highest self and what my emotions were telling me that I wanted to do right now to make it feel better, to make it a place where I'm excited. And sometimes it turns out to be very simple things. It turns out that I move my couch a little bit. Yeah, I just move my couch like 45 degrees, and it feels different. It kind of like moves away some of the negative vibes or the negative preconceptions that I might have had about this space. Or I move where like my little entertainment center is, and I move that a little bit. And it's not that, and I built a shelf. I built a shelf, and I took out some furniture that I didn't need anymore. And I donated some clothing that I didn't need anymore. And it's not that these are grandiose, expensive things to do. That's not really the point. But it's more putting the intention into things you move or things that you build. And when you put that new intention, when you put that focus on creating a space that's more aligned with you, even if it's a small thing, you're putting that energy into the space, and the energy that may have been blocking you from feeling like that leaves. The old energy is here, and the new energy comes in, and it pushes the old stuff out. And I started to feel like a lot better about where I was at, because it started to give me a new perspective. I mean, I'm not just looking outside the window from a new angle, physically visually, but I'm using that as my launching point to have a visual metaphor for how I'm seeing the space around me. And I think that can lead to more creative projects down the line as we go down through the next, year or so. And I think that starting from this basic thing is kind of like creating and giving myself a new canvas, unwrapping a fresh canvas that I haven't put all this negative emotions or um, preconceived notions or expectations on. And I'm not thinking about 6 months from now. I'm not thinking about 8 months now. I'm thinking about, like, what am I going to do in the next couple of days? What do I need to do to keep this feeling going? And the more you do it, the more attainable it feels. And the more energy you put into it, the easier it is to access that energy. It's kind of like, I know when I'm feeling down, I start to think of ways that I can make myself feel more down, which might be listening to a song that makes me feel even more sad, or shutting myself away from people and feeling more sad, and it obviously, if it works in that way with it can work detrimental or not, because sometimes feeling those emotions are very important. It can certainly work the other way. And right now, because of surrendering to what my higher self is kind of whispering in my ear to do, and using a little bit of creativity, I'm finding that it's easier to build that positive feeling. And that starts to get, well, what else can I do to have this feeling? What else can I do to create this vibe in my space? And the more you do it, the easier you realize that it is to do. It's just practice at the end of the day. And so the thought to leave everyone with for this Sunday is, look around in your space, look around where you're at. If you're feeling like you're in a rut, or if if things didn't go as planned, if the universe shook things up, or the universe had a different plan than what you envisioned, because everything's happening how it's supposed to be. The fact that it didn't match my expectations, that's a me problem. And I need to look to the universe and be like, oh yeah, okay, well, I guess we didn't match up with each other there. What do I do now? And see where you can start to realign the way you see your day to day, the way you see the future that the universe is giving you. And so things are not exactly what I had planned 3 months ago, but I do know, and I have been granted 4 amazing, creative, wonderful days at Uniacres with some of the most beautiful people I know. And it has allowed me to come back to this apartment and find a way to make it a home. And I embrace that opportunity. I embrace the challenge, the opportunity to show my creativity and listen to the divine and create something wonderful. And so, starting to see these things not as things not going my way, just seeing things as how they were supposed to. And that is a big act of surrender. And it gets easier to do with practice. It gets easier to do with support. So again, I feel blessed for my community. I feel blessed to have seen my UNICULT family 3 times in the last 9 months, which is incredible considering, up until last August, none of us had hung out together in a group. And when you think about that in totality, that's pretty amazing. It's pretty remarkable. And I think that only signals amazing things for the future. And so I am embracing understanding the joy and gifts and blessings that have come before. And I am embracing going forward the opportunity to surrender and take the ideas that are being divinely passed down to me and expressing them however I feel is best for me. And you all can do the same. And we are exactly where we need to be, and things are happening exactly as they need to. and we just have to feel into it. So that is our sermon today. Yeah, I guess it is kind of like feng shui. I'm necessarily familiar with it. With that, I mean, I'm aware of the concept, but I would never, I haven't really read up on it. The Space Freckles baked goods are amazing. Space Freckle made the most amazing cake that we had on retreat, and it was amazing. And Space Freckle, I want to give you thanks again for doing that and taking a cake across state lines. That's pretty rebellious. It's a true act of rebellion, and it was delicious. And that sound lost lifetimes. That sounds really interesting. And so, yeah. If anyone wants to, let me go ahead. We'll do a final prayer, and I'm just going to throw up the info again. If you are wanting to donate to this amazing cause, you can do so by doing Unicole Unicron at Venmo. If you're wanting it to be for the church, just specify that it's for the church. But if you are wanting to do anything else, just go ahead and Venmo Unicole Unicron. And if you're having trouble with any of the donations, give us a call on the hotline. I know there's been some, just a few weirdness earlier. Also, go ahead and hit up UNICULT Supply Co. Orders, again, are still going to be a bit delayed. But I think things like t-shirts and whatnot are going to be available, and you can still get those. And of course, you can always get the world famous UNICULT application. Also, follow us at UNICULT4Joy on TikTok, UNICULT4Joy on Twitter, and you can find us on Facebook. And we're the page specifically that's mostly just like UNICULT news. And so take a look for us there. And let's do a prayer. Yeah, thank you so much. All right, Spirit of Uni, thank you for gathering us here today in this beautiful virtual church with all these amazing members of UNICULT and everyone else who is here listening to this message. May we all take these teachings and everything. May we all take these teachings in whatever way that we need to, and may we feel into the energy that UNICULT brings all of us, and may you find yourself creative and fulfilled and blossoming on whatever your spiritual journey is, whether that's UNICULT or whether that's something else. Uni bless.